Hello, and welcome to Teaching with Inquiry Live. Do you ever feel like you are falling behind and can never keep up with your planning? Or do you spend hours and hours every night filling out your plan book and writing your lesson plans? Or perhaps you have just given up and have stopped filling out your lesson plan book completely and are disconnected with your lesson plans and just flying by the seat of your pants. If that is you, or if any of those three statements, then you have come to the right place. Just give me a thumbs up in the comments, because I think all of us at some point have felt that one time or another. And that's what we're talking about tonight, is how I'm using some lesson planning strategies in my classroom so that I can actually get some of my evenings back, so I'm not planning my lessons every single night of the week. So I am Patty, and welcome to Teaching with Inquiry Live. This is a show about how inquiry has transformed the teaching in my classroom, and I am here live every single week sharing my journey with you because I want to help you to use more inquiry in your classroom so that you can cut down on some of the overwhelm, save you some time, and perhaps even have a little. So again, as I was saying, I was using a digital planner in my plan book, and I was finding I was entering my information in every single night, and it was consuming every evening after I put the kids to bed. And I just wasn't ready. I was too tired, and I wasn't ready to continue to constantly be adding to my plan book like that. So what I ended up doing is going back to the basics, and I started putting out a planner. I could have just skipped it and not planned at all, because I just didn't have any time, and I was too tired after spending all evening teaching, or all day teaching, and then all evening with my kids. I was too tired to be planning all night long. And frankly, the digital plan book was just overwhelming me. So what I ended up doing was looking at a week at a glance plan book and going back to paper. So I needed to be able to look at each subject in isolation. For me, that's how my brain worked. Looking at a traditional calendar format like I had originally done when I started teaching wasn't exactly working for me, because it still made me focus day to day as opposed to the big picture. So I needed a planner that was going to help me focus more on the big picture of what the whole week looked like as opposed to individual lessons. Especially when using inquiry in your classroom, you're looking more at big picture as you're planning as opposed to individual lessons, because a lot of it is student driven week to week, and a lesson might flow from one day to another. So I definitely had to find a way to look at my subjects where they were separate. So they weren't all on one big picture, week by week, organized by day, but instead on my planner, they're organized by subject. So now I plan on Sundays, and I'm just using that format that worked for me. So let me show you what my planner looks like, and I'll be completely honest, it looks a lot different from that regular calendar that you're going to see in the mass-produced plan books that you might buy at a store, or maybe even the original one that you relied on as a teacher. So this is the first page of my plan book, and you'll notice that I have notes up at the top. This is where I'll take the week at a glance that is sent from my principal and quickly just write notes. I'll also make a list of all the prep that I might have to do as I'm going through my planning. Sometimes this is the first, sometimes this is the last thing I do. Now this is done on Sundays, or if I happen to be busy Sunday like I was yesterday, I was actually done first thing this morning before school started. So sometimes it's not always right on Sundays. Sometimes it's literally 20 minutes before the bell rings, but that is the reality some days. So I reflect on what we did the previous week. and then where we need to go next. So I pull up the million windows that are on my desktop, and then I look at the different subjects. So for instance, for this morning, what I looked at is where we were in math. So I looked at what we did last week, and I reflected on what we did last week, and then decided where do we needed to go next, what my students needed most based on the data that I collected, both through my guided math lessons, as well as my whole group lessons and the products that my students created, decided what needed to be the next step for this week. That's what went into my planning, and I wrote them all down. We're on day 2 today, so day 2 to day 5, because Friday's a PA day for me, so I'm only planning for 4 days this week. And I'm writing and I'm looking at it so that it goes sequentially. So what is kind of the overall goal, and how am I going to attack that? And I really like looking at it where math is all chunked together. Now, because I'm also using guided math, I have that built into my planner here, where I have the different activities for each of the math centers that week. It just helps me to plan out what goes in each center. So I'm just making brief notes, and whatever goes in there, I'll also maybe make a note for where the prep goes, and what prep will be required for that. I'll be completely honest, I try to reduce the reliance on things that I actually have to prepare, and I want it to be things that my students can create, because the less photocopying for me, the more planned and organized I feel. So the other thing that I'm doing is, because I'm using inquiry, this type of planner does lend itself really well to inquiry. Now, this is the plan, but I also have to say that about half of my planning is actually done with my students, because I'm using inquiry, because I'm allowing them to take a lot of choice of what they're doing, and they take a lot of the lead. We are having conversations a lot during the week about where we are in our learning, what might need to go next. And although I may lead them that way, a lot of the times the discussion is, what would you like that to look like? How would you like that format to go? And I end up doing a lot of my lesson planning right there with my students in collaboration. For instance, tomorrow I'm going to be giving my grade 5 students a human body test. Now, my students have decided what the questions will be. They've decided the format, so they want it on Google Drive, because they love the idea that their test gets marked immediately, so they don't actually have to wait for me to mark all 17 of their tests, because there's also 12 grade 4s of their stuff that has to be marked. So they like it on Google Drive. So they've told me what questions they want. They've reflected on the things that they've learned and made sure that those things are on their test. So I'm not actually planning the test. I'm just implementing the things they told me they want on their test. In fact, I'm even okay if they know some of the questions, because it's about them studying and showing that they've learned it. I'm not here to trick them. So they have done a lot of that themselves, which is great, because that cuts down significantly on my planning time as well when we are doing a lot of it together. So I'll show you, this is the math and science that I teach. I don't teach phys ed, and I don't teach music, so that's not on my plans. But this is my language. Now, if you've seen my Ignited Literacy resource, you'll see that the lesson plan pages that are in that resource are actually very similar to what you see here on my planner. And that's definitely not done by accident. Selfishly, it's how I think and plan. So I just write down what's in my Ignited Literacy lesson plan in short form here on this planner in a way that's tailored to my students. So it doesn't always look identical to the resource, because I do have to be responsive to my students. And then I keep track of which students I'm going to be meeting for guided reading, and as well as which students I need to be conferencing with. And I also have art and media down and drama down at the bottom, because I will alternate some of those. And those are all of the subjects I teach, and I look at them as a whole piece there. This doesn't necessarily mean that my planning of the actual products I'm putting in students' hand are down. What I've cut down is the writing out of my lesson plans in my lesson plan book, which was taking me every night, because I wasn't thinking big picture. I was thinking individual days, and that didn't exactly tie in with what the teaching was looking like in my classroom, which was far more big idea picture of an inquiry-based classroom in math and in language and in science and social studies. So this planner made it a lot easier for me to be able to match what the teaching and learning was happening in my classroom with what was in my plan book. So I also brought my plan book to show you as well. So this is my beautiful plan book. It's actually, here, I'll hold it back here. It's actually a happy planner that I've removed all of the pages from. So don't actually go buy a full happy planner unless you really love them for yourself. But what I did is I have just these, they're little spiral circles, they're little plastic discs. And this is just a hard laminated cover. So if you've got a pretty picture that you could print out and laminate it, it would go. And the only other thing you would need is a special punch to go in. The reason I like this instead of using a binder is this feature. This is what I love about it. Hold on, let me show you. So here's my December plan. So I actually love, with a binder, you can only open it like this. My favorite thing is that you can do this. Oh, I'm going to make myself big screen here. Let's see. There we go. So the fact that you can wrap it around itself, just, I don't know, maybe I'm just picky, but I love that about this, is that I can just flip it and fold it over onto itself. So this is actually my weekly planner that I have in here. You could either do a 2-page spread where it sits open on your desk, something like this. But if I took a picture of my desk, you'd notice that my desk is probably a mess covered with paper. So I need to take up the least amount of room possible. So I just simply do a 1-page and then I flip the page. And I've got the page on the back here for me. So this is helpful, and I've got my prep, and I also have my schedule here because I do need to know what subjects I'm teaching day in and day out. So I can reference, so you'll see on here, we are on a 5-day schedule in my class. So I have here the days, so I can say day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, and then I actually have what classes are up here. But in all honesty, this is really, that schedule is in big right on the board above my desk. So I know what I'm doing when, and I just have to say, oh, it's language. Okay, so I'll flip to language. What am I doing? Day 2, it's right there, and I can plan my language all together. So that's really important to me, that I have a plan book that is reflective of what's actually happening in my classroom. So I know that so many of you tune in all the time to the show, and I greatly appreciate that. So tonight I'm doing something very special to you, or very special for you. I'm actually going to give you the PowerPoint file. I do in Keynote, but I know most people have PowerPoint, but I'm going to be giving you the PowerPoint file, which is 100% editable. So you can go in and customize this plan exactly for you. I will be completely honest that some of the fonts in the one I showed you here, some of the fonts in here are going to be different. I've changed them in the one that I gave you for free simply because I wanted to make sure that the fonts I was using in the version I'm giving to you that's editable, you can access those fonts for free. And I've provided the links for you to make sure that you know what they are. So you will see. This is the file that you will get. So it says welcome. Please be aware that the first time you open the file, because you most likely don't have the fonts that I've used in here, the formatting will look completely off for you until you have the proper fonts. So some of the fonts will look a little ugly, to be completely honest. So when you first open it up, just don't look at them and simply click on the links that I've provided here for you. And that will link you to where you can download and install these free fonts. And then you have pretty fonts on your computer, which is always nice. And they are free. 3 of them are Kimberly Geswin fonts that you can get for free on TPT, providing you don't plan on using them for commercial purposes, which means you're not going to use the fonts to sell this. And the last one you might actually have on your font, or might actually have, is Arial Narrow. So you might have that, but just in case you don't, I've included the link to find that here. Once you install these fonts on your computer, shut down the PowerPoint, open it back up again, and all of the fonts will look perfectly normal the way they're supposed to look. So it will look like this, which is a little bit different from mine. You'll see the script font is different, but these are free and ready to use. Christy, I do see that you're using Google Apps, and will this work for the file? If you take the PowerPoint file and you upload it into Google Apps, so into Google Drive, it should retain most of the formatting features, but you will probably have to play around with some of the sizing of the tables. So all of these things are tables and borders. These little arrow things on the sides are images, but most of these are just tables and borders. So if you're pretty familiar with tables and borders and resizing those on a page, it should work out without too much. I haven't tested it though, to see if it's there. But if it doesn't work, I can always give you a PDF of it and you can just print it. I just wanted to make sure that you had the editable version to make it your own. And you can also change around. Now I've also included, if you're a calendar person, I've also included this layout, which is still Monday to Friday, but it does let you plan, say, math all along the top and social studies all along here. I did 2 social studies, obviously, because I have a split grade, so I needed A and B, art and language, and you can add other things. Again, these are just tables and borders, so you can add more rows, or you can take some away. You can change the titles of each of the headings. You can change the fonts if you want here. It is totally up to you and completely editable. And this is my gift to you. It is free for those of you watching the live right now. It is free for you, and it will remain free for 24 hours only. So I guess you could share the link with friends if you want, but instead, why not share the video and then they can get the information? I would absolutely love it if you shared or tagged a friend that you think would love this kind of planner. If you share and tag them, they've got 24 hours to follow the link and download this file completely for free, editable for you to use to make it easy with their plan book. So the link, which I'm sure you are all dying for, maybe not dying for, but maybe you just want it because you like free stuff. I mean, that's kind of me too. But the link is really easy. It's www.madlylearning.com/free. And it's that simple. And at the end of 24 hours, so tomorrow night at 9 o'clock, that link won't work anymore. You'll just hit a dead page on my website, which is new. It's prettier now. So, I mean, you can search around and look for that. But what you're looking for is www.madlylearning.com/free. And you will get a link to this planner just for you. After that 24 hours, I will be throwing this up as a paid resource on my TPT store because I know I've had a few questions about it. So for you, for watching this show, you get it for free. And if other people are interested in it in the after show, you can find this resource on my TPT store for a very small fee. So thank you so much for watching. I am happy to see all of you joining me today. I'm really hoping that this has given you a different idea of how you could possibly plan for teaching and learning in your classroom. Thank you so much for all of the hearts and the thumbs up. I greatly appreciate those. If you know somebody who would benefit from this planner, please tag them in the comments below so that they can also get it within the next 24 hours and get it free as well. So I will see you next week. Thanks so much for joining me for another episode of Teaching with Inquiry Live. Bye for now.